In the 90s, Playmates Toys made the deepest line of Star Trek action figures in history. My name's Keith, and I'm a collector working towards owning all 284. I've been a Trek fan for almost 35 years, and most people are sick of me talking about it. But somehow I've convinced my old friend Mike to review them with me on Look at My Star Trek Toys! What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Look at My Star Trek Toys. We record a couple of these back to back, so I haven't had a chance to play with toys in a couple of weeks. Mike, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great. I have to say, I've been obsessed with toys lately. I've been going in and out of stores to check to see if these have been displayed yet, and I got a bead on a Walmart near me that might have them, so I might get some B-roll, Keith, of the toys in the wild. But, I was just watching, and in the intro, I didn't realize that there's Little Keith. And Little Keith has to be from Star Trek, The Wrath of Khan, an unaired episode of TNG, which you might not have seen, folks, on YouTube. Wait, now you would have, because we passed the 500 subscriber threshold.
Yes, no, it is available in the YouTubes. Just go and check on K&M Entertainment. You can find the entire masterpiece that is Star Trek: The Wrath of Khan. But yeah, no, it's really quite something. So what are we talking about today, Mike?
Well, Keith, you just want me to cue up my sounds, right?
I'm just excited to hear it. You've been vocalizing and warming up before we do this. So why don't you just give us the name of who we're working on today?
Khan!
That's right. Here he is. We are going to be discussing Khan Noonien Singh and his 2022 Playmates figure. Very excited. These 2022 Playmates reviews have been some of the most fun I have had on the show. But before we do, Mike, there's something we always have to do, and that is, of course, thank our patrons, who you can join on patreon.com/KNM. Mike, why don't you tell us, A, who our patrons are, and B, what awesome fun stuff can they get?
Absolutely, Keith. I would be happy to do so. In fact, it's true that these 2022 Playmates new Star Trek figures have been divisive, but our patrons are never divisive. They are always a success. They always get 2 thumbs up. Brian Kaufman, Casey Clark, Cloud Lover 69, Jason Moe, Jorge Navoa, and the mysterious Worf's Boot Shivs, aka Charles Nivens. Thanks, Charles, for the laugh. Alan Zimmerman, CRM Productions, Charles Babbage, and at Grim_Toys. Thanks for being part of the team. If you'd like to join them, you can do so at patreon.com/KNM. You get all kinds of bonus stuff. We watch the animated series. We watch some episodes of TNG. We do an AMA here and there. We aired the Wrath of Khan. What else have we done? You can watch Deep Space Nine with me before we talk about it on the webs. There's lots of stuff coming down the pike. And we dropped our new show, K&M Geekly. And
that's right.
There'll be stuff on there too. This week we're going to be talking. I guess it'll be this Monday. Yeah, a couple days from now we'll be talking about Halloween Ends, which I watched last night. Yes. Excited to talk about with you.
I am so excited to talk about it. Yeah, K&M Geekly. It'll show up here in your feed. So if you subscribe, you can find out when we do it. And I have spent the last couple of days creating a meticulous ranking of every single Halloween film, with the added detail of how Michael dies in each one of them. So lots of really fun murderous mayhem. It's going to be a spoiler fest.
It's going to be a spoiler fest, so be prepared for that. Keith, before we jump in today, speaking of how people ranking various movies, can you remind me of The Wrath of Khan? Where does that fall in the sort of grand movie scheme of the Trekiverse?
Well, I think a couple of things. In terms of its placement, it is, of course, Star Trek II. It is the second of the movies after the motion picture, and certainly I think the movie that set the Star Trek movie franchise apace. Because the first one was like, it made money, but like, I don't know. Wrath of Khan came in and like, boom, we are doing this. We're going to do more of these. This is amazing. So it is number 2 sequentially. They did sort of remake it in the Abrams verse. But whatever. But in terms of the rankings of the Star Trek films, in terms of their quality and rewatchableness, Wrath of Khan is right up there, if not number 1, maybe number 2. Depends. Maybe it's First Contact, maybe it's Wrath of Khan, maybe that is determined by your generation. But it is a legendary film, and there's a reason why these are some of the first figures that Playmates put out in 2022 because of how important Khan is and the Wrath of Khan is to Star Trek history. You might even wonder, right? If Wrath of Khan had crashed and burned at the box office, would there even be a Star Trek The Next Generation? Would there even be a Deep Space Nine and a Voyager and the expansion of the Trekverse that we're in today? I don't know. Maybe there would be, maybe there wouldn't be. So we can really be thankful to the Wrath of Khan for what it did for Trek in general. So this is going to be fun because we are going to unbox this figure as we do all of these times. So, but before we do, I think we should look at the original box because we are going to be this is the retro packaging that we get here in North America. If you're in Europe, you're getting the STU packaging. We've seen a lot of pictures of that, and people have had a lot of opinions about whether they prefer the international packaging or the retro packaging. And I think there's, from a design standpoint, I like the new stuff. From a like feels place and reminding me of my childhood, I gotta go with the retro. But what do you say we hop over to Toy Cam and take a look at this box, the new box, and the original box side by side here, Mike. Any first impressions?
I think that they once again nailed the somewhat likeness. I do miss the card, the trading card. I think we've talked about that before. I miss the trading card. But at least we get do we have a stand in the old one?
Yes, there is the movie stand, which is behind him in the picture there, which are, I think, in terms of the stands, those classic movie stands might be the best ones that they made. They're bigger, they're clunkier, and they add height to the figures, but I really do like them as stands. But of course, we're getting the the crappy newsstand, but we knew that already. We've talked about that ad nauseum. But if we look at the original box, we can see there are, of course, some similarities and differences. We've rearranged the ship and the text to add or to subtract the height, because these cards are shorter, obviously. But other than that, it's very similar. And we're of course going to look at the differences between the new figure and the old figure. But you'll notice a couple of other little differences in the box. First off, we don't have the celebration of the 40th anniversary of the Wrath of Khan because, of course, it wasn't.
We have his full name, huh?
His full name this time, as opposed to just his short name, his Madonna name. We've got an extra Star Trek logo on the original box there, but the rest of it is virtually the same. Although I noticed one thing. I noticed one thing, Mike. There's been a tradition with the 2022 Playmates line. Can you remember what that grand tradition is?
I can, Keith, but it's crazy that you would have the audacity. You, Keith Varney, would have the audacity to point out people's copyright and spelling errors when you make so many so often, Keith. How dare you?
With my atrocious public speaking. I forget exactly what the comment was, but yeah. I was atrocious. All of my ums and uhs.
You live long enough to become the hero or the villain, Keith, and we've gotten enough trolls that we've really come into our own.
I knew exactly where I was going to land on that.
Yeah.
100%. I'm definitely the heel of this show.
Keith and I we're just observing, guys. We're not claiming to be experts. We're just observing, and we have observed on quite a few. Definitely the phaser and at least another figure. Some
on the ship.
Yeah, on the ship, we've noticed some spelling errors, some typos that didn't get caught by any editors. So what do we got today?
And believe me, I am not one to talk because I can't spell my way out of a paper bag. So don't, believe me, this is not casting stones. But first off, the other thing I'm noticing, big choking hazards warning, and not so much. No, it's on the bot. They moved the choking hazard thing there. All right. Well, anyway, so do you remember, as a huge Star Trek nerd that you are, where Khan might have been marooned in the original series and where we discover him?
I know.
No, of course not. It would be SETI Alpha 6.
Right. With all the whales, right?
Yes, with the whales. That's exactly right. So
he's riding them or something?
He's riding the whales. That's right. I'm so glad you really have been paying attention. So I'm just going to blow this up so you can see. Our galactic accessories include a Starfleet phaser, a bowl of SETI eels. They weren't really eels, but they were the mind control dealies. The Genesis torpedo, the Genesis control box, and the Star Trek movie action base. Now, we know we have this great retro packaging. They've really remade and copied and pasted a lot of this here, including crediting it as a movie action base, which it most profoundly is not. But let's just take a closer look up there. What kind of eels do we have here on the new box?
Oh yeah, the Codys.
The Cody eels. So I don't know. So much for that. We also do not get a Genesis torpedo, but we do get some Cody eels. So yep, that's it's part of the tradition. I would be disappointed, frankly, if we didn't have at least one typo on the box. So let's take a look at the back. Now, I know, folks, I hear you out there. Just open the damn thing. Show us the figure. Yeah, there's chapters below. So if this is boring to you,
we call this
hit the chapter.
#toy foreplay.
Toy foreplay. Oh,
don't Google that.
You heard there. That was me swallowing so many different things I was thinking about saying.
Google that. #don't Google that.
No. All right. Well, as we continue edging, let's look at the box here. So we have, they did spell the SETI eels correctly this time. The base, I mean, I guess that's how they expect them to be stood up, because it's a little bit upside down, the Starfleet insignia there. But I've always wondered, right? Because there's lots of different ways to put the figure on the stand, a lot of ways to put the communicator, and I always put them up so that the tip of the triangle was back. But this is sort of the opposite of that. Maybe that's what they intended.
Oh, I go sideways. That's the only way I can get them to stand up straight, is to go sideways.
Well, it is true. That's the only way we can get them to stand up straight. But I don't think it looks as good.
I just don't want them to fall off the shelf. The cats, I found, Keith, that my biggest problem now that I've started collecting some action figures is the cat. The cat just...
It's always the cats.
...wants to wreak mayhem on my shelf.
Well, and you only have 3 or 4 figures. I have like 300 back there, and the cat, he'll knock one over, and then it's dominoes, and the entire shelf will go down.
Although I do have to say, I mentioned it earlier. Sorry, I'm getting off topic quickly. We'll talk about it on Geekly maybe. Action figures today, like Playmates has some other lines, and there are some like movie lines, and I think there's one called Real Figs or something that does like movie scenes and stuff, like the one for Halloween. There are some amazing action figures right now, and it is taking everything within me, especially as my wife's going out of town for a few months, to not just start buying toys. Yeah.
Well, it gives us more things to review on the internet.
That's true.
I feel like our viewers would probably sit through a review of a Halloween toy or a turtle or such.
Yeah. Do we put that on Geekly, or do we spin off, Keith? Do we spin off a special?
Do we need yet another show?
Woo! It's getting a little bit too much Keith every week. All right, let's move forward.
That's way too much. All right, so let's take a look at our bio here. For Khan. Why don't you give us a reading of the bio?
Subject: Khan Noonien Singh. Species, human, augment. Rank, former dictator. Assignment,
Is that a rank?
exile. Well, it is. Did you watch the hearings last night? Assignment, exiled to Sethi Alpha 5. Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, seeking vengeance on James T. Kirk, Chuck superhuman tyrant, Kain. Keith, it's moving quite a bit. I'm looking at through NDI as you shake it, seeking vengeance on. Hold on.
Every time you screw up, I laugh. I can't hold it straight. Oh boy, so dramatic. Now, of course, a little behind the scenes, because we always just talk about behind the scenes. The video I'm getting of Mike is about 25 seconds behind and in slow motion. So if we're extra out of sync right now, I can't see what Mike is doing.
Oh, I hope that all works.
Yeah, well, it doesn't really matter, because you're going to be layered on later.
Can you hear me in real time?
I can hear you in real time.
Oh, okay.
That's the good news.
All right.
Can you imagine what kind of a mess that would be? I mean, we're already a mess.
It is a hot mess.
That would be a disaster. Okay. Well, I think maybe it's just time to bust this thing open, folks.
Let's do it.
All right. So here we are.
Now, we learned a new tactic from a friend of the show about how to de-seatbelt them without a knife or something sharp. In fact, my first unboxing, which was my Saru figure, my knife got a little bit of a nick on the paint, which is still bugging me to this day. So let's see if the new tactic... I didn't quite understand what he said, but we'll see shortly.
All right. Well, I guess you got Sir screwed. But I can't even see your stink face from that stupid joke. Okay, so here we are. Let us try this technique of de-seat belting.
What he said, grab by the knees or something?
He said grab by the knees. But I don't know about the knees. I mean, I guess we can. We're gonna slide out, maybe. No, I just broke him. Oh no! Wait. God! God! Oh no!
Oh well, we got it. You know what? We're live. We're doing it live.
No, this is 100% what's going to happen here. So let's.
All right. Hashtag can they fix it? So let's just. Why don't you get that pair of scissors out? Why don't we?
No, well, because you go up that way. I think if you grab them by the torso and go up.
Okay.
I mean, well, hey, look, folks. Now we can see how exactly the leg articulates.
Yes, absolutely.
We have a ball joint in there.
That was just the first leg of the show.
Boo.
We can't see anything. We can't see any. Okay.
Okay. All right. Hold on. We're gonna find out. Let me just go back to full toy cam.
Sounds
that
great.
Way I have a little more space to work with here. Can we?
Oh, look at that.
Oh my God. I'm pretty much a doctor.
Yeah, you're like a customizer now.
I'm 100% a customizer. So yeah. So if you see now this brings back great memories of G.I. Joes.
Yeah, you couldn't fix those legs because they had the elastic in there. The rubber band.
The elastic in them. However, because you had a screw in the back, you could pop it off and change out the waist and legs down from character to character and change out their arms and heads, and I did that constantly. So technically, if I wanted to pop out these legs, you could put Picard legs on your Khan and so on and so forth, which seems like a terrible idea, but 10-year-old me 100% would have done it.
A pecan, if you will?
No.
Okay.
That's terrible. All right, so before I play too much more with Khan, because we had to do we had a medical emergency. We have to look at the choking hazards. Here is the movie action base. So says the box there. Well, this is a bit of a lie. So this is a Genesis device controller. which actually JD sent me one, the Genesis device controller that was made by another customs company. I should show it next time.
Keith, I stand by what I said last week. In fact, some people agreed with me in the comments. Because we're not getting those customizable trading cards, and because 3D printing is so easy these days, a cool, 3D printed head or picture image of some sort on those bases would up the quality substantially. But you're right, $12, $15.
Yeah. I mean, yes and yes. Yes, that would be cool. And also, considering how cheap these figures are, we're getting a lot of bang for our buck here.
Is he making hot dogs or burgers on the Barbie? What is that poker?
This is the little zapper that he zaps the little earwig dealies with, I believe. Let me see what it's actually called.
I'll get one with cheese, please, Con.
It is the... Oh, it doesn't even say what it is. It is not labeled on the box, but it is how he was able to grab the little earwig and put it in Chekhov's ear. Anyway, so, okay, cool. And actually, I'm curious to go back to the original.
Are there stickers on it?
Well, let's find out. Let me see if I can move just the correct one here. I can't tell from that. I don't think there were.
Doesn't seem, well, at least not on the poker or the little medallion.
I think it was hidden behind the card. And I don't have this one in box. So I don't have the correct choking hazards that you would hope that I would. But I do have an interesting version of this figure, which we're going to compare and contrast once we're done looking at it. So let's take a closer look at the figure itself. Yeah, you can see there's a lot of really cool detail in there. I think the facial sculpt is pretty good.
How's the hair separation? Does it have some movement like the fabrics have, or it's just no? Yeah, well, it does.
No, the hair is hard, but you are able to move the head, but it is of course restricted by the hair.
Okay.
So he's not going to be able to turn his head around.
So but it does hide the neck gap, which had bothered you and some folks.
Right. There's no neck. There's no Picardian neck gap. Oh, and there's our copyright. See, now this is interesting, right?
Yeah, they gave us that whole song and dance about how they couldn't change it, but they got it on his belt.
They've got it on his belt and up the side and up the back there too, but that doesn't. I mean, I guess part of it is on the Starfleet uniforms. It sticks out more. That actually is not nearly as noticeable. If you take it away by a little bit, you can't even see it. Whereas on some of the Starfleet ones, it sticks out way more. I'm not entirely sure why, but they did clearly have to adapt it a little bit to get onto his merce to fit.
I will say I have seen on the internets, on the interwebs, and in fact in a couple of gas stations upstate, some of the knockoffs, not of these Trek toys, but of other toys lines, and they are pretty egregiously bad. So
well, yeah,
I get the point of the copyright, like legally, and also to kind of like separate the. I don't know. I'm trying to like justify, but I guess it's just what they have to do.
Well, I mean, people should be credited for their IP, but of course, as a writer, I'd want to credit who created the character, not the company that owns the character.
When I pull up some of those new toys, I got to see how they handle the copyright.
Yes. So we have our pretty great articulation, as we've discovered on all of these things. The hands don't move. Well, I guess they're a little stiff, but yeah, I mean, it looks the legs. He's got again. His very skinny legs, like we've seen on a lot of these characters here. But the paint detail is great. I think the sculpt is great. Proportions. It's funny because he has the iconic Khanian chest, which we should all aspire to. But he's a little skinny compared to what we're used to with the characters. But I mean, once again, it's in this line. I like this figure a lot because of how much detail it has. I mean, the Starfleet uniforms, like we've seen, with Picard and Data. I mean, they look great, except for Data's gold, neck thingy. But with these more character bits, you can see so much more detail in the sculpt. And I imagine it had to have been a lot more fun for Varner Studios to get in there and like really start sculpting all of this. So yeah, I really like that. Let us, while we're here, compare him to the original 90s Khan. What do you say, Mike?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, so here is other Khan. Now you'll notice, hey, mine looks different because this one is a it's a customized one for post-battle damage Khan. So this is not exactly the original Playmates figure, but it's just the original Playmates figure with some extra paint on it. And you can see he's grown a little, and he's trimmed up a little. So he's done what all of us wish that we could do. Like, I'd be another couple inches taller and maybe half as narrow as I am, or half as wide as I am. So you can sort of see the differences here, which I think in a lot of ways this shows how good some of those original sculpts were.
Yeah.
Because there's so much, obviously it's been completely redone from scratch, but there's so much similarity in the details and the sculpting. Yeah, I mean, this is a really good one of the original Playmates figures.
Yeah, I think the juxtaposition between the older line and the newer line, regardless of like your take, is a good exploration of how technology has advanced, right? Like we're able to get that detail and we're able to trim down the figures. I think the scale and size and width of a lot of the original figures on this line and a lot of other toy lines was determined by, in order to get any of that facial detail, they had to be a certain size, right? Because we didn't have the sort of laser printing and technology that they do now, and the paint abilities. So it's cool to see what we're able to do now, and I mean that in mass market, right? Like obviously,
right.
People keep talking about the Diamond Select and all of the higher collector lines. Yeah, you spend more money, you can spend more time on each figure. We're talking, this is a mass market cheap toy.
I think that's a really good and important point with all of this. And I didn't look it up because I'm not a professional, but somebody should, right? What did the Diamond Select figures cost? When they first came out retail.
Mm-hmm.
Can you look that up, Mike?
Mm-hmm.
Because everyone's like, well, the Diamond Selects are better. Well, of course they're better. Now, unless you're going to come back and say they were $15, and then I will eat my hat.
Well, it's hard to see, I mean, right off the bat what they cost originally. Right now they go for about $50 plus 15 shipping.
All right. So I think I would imagine probably 2 or 3 times the price point retail, right? So yeah, is it better because you're paying $40 as opposed to 15? Yeah, duh. That's why your Mercedes is better than my Hyundai. Like, yeah, because you pay more, you get a better car. Duh.
But
and so
I mean, let's talk about the marketing currently for these figures when they come out. It's hard to tell now because it's been a lot of online and we haven't seen them in stores as much personally. But who are you marketing this to? Because people of our age, right, and people who have a nostalgic affinity like you and many of our viewers probably have the means at this point. They want a collector's item, would probably price up to seek out a collector's item, versus like the articulation on these, they make it seems very, to me, geared towards people who are going to play with the figures, i.e. kids. Yet what is the marketing? Are kids watching Wrath of Khan? Is that, or should we be putting our dollars into the newer stuff?
And that part is a little bit confusing to me from Playmates' point of view, because you're kind of having your cake and eating it too.
It seems like it's pointed to you, right? Like these lines seems like it's pointed directly to you.
Pointed to me.
Yeah.
But I think outside of the kids versus collectors question, I think they're marketed not just to collectors, but to collectors who want to have a larger set, right? because like, yes, you could pay $100 for each figure and get amazing figures, but then how many can you really, like how many can a reasonable person own of those, right? I'd rather have 10 at $15 a piece than one at 150 or two 150. Like the Playmates line was about the size of the line, was about filling your shelf with the whole set of characters, not that one golden Picard that you have that cost you $500. And so I think that's part of where the Playmates idea is. Whether or not they're going to kids or collectors, it doesn't matter. The point is, it's for wanting to have a large, expansive line that I don't want these to be more expensive. If you gave me a little bit better detail for another $20 a figure, I don't want that because I can't afford to have a whole shelf of those.
That's why I'm interested to see the in-store shelving space, because when you go into the Walmart or Target now, their shelf space is at a premium. Like your Transformers, your He-Man, your Star Wars, they have shelf space and they take it up and it's segmented and they have theming and all kinds of cool stuff. What are they going to do with 8 Star Trek figures? Because there's no other Star Trek in stores right now, barely, in these big box stores. So how are they going to carve out? What is their marketing? What is their design philosophy going to be? Or is it just going to be Picard and Khan underneath the Star Wars toys?
Well, and and we have been starting to get some pictures of people sending them in the wild. So maybe next episode, I'll include some of those and we can discuss the shelf placement of these figures. So let's wrap up Khan here. Let's have a wrap of Khan. Mike, what are your feelings about this figure?
This is a different. I feel the same way I felt about all of them. I like this line. I agree. I've seen comments. I've seen some other videos about people really getting in on the quality control and the painting and all of the specific. That's not kind of what we're more of a big picture kind of guy, kind of show. I like it. I personally appreciate the more defined human-esque sculpts, whereas the bigger ones look more. In Khan, though, he's a large-size villain. He's got some legend behind him, so I don't mind the more kind of hulky sort of action figure-y pro wrestling type figure from the original Playmates line. But this one's going to look real nice next to Picard, next to James T.
Well, next to Kirk.
Yeah. I'm just looking at all the guys on my shelf. He's real nice, and he shows that they're willing to play with the copyright a little bit and try to work it into the design flow, maybe. So.
Maybe, yeah, hopefully that will improve in the next couple of series, because I think that has been the number one complaint. I will say, now looking at the back of them, I think I bet Khan would prefer to have more of the flair in the jacket as opposed to a unitard up the business on the back end here. So
I have to say, there are, in many ways, I do appreciate the original sculpt better, maybe.
Well, the
original
scale,
design, at least.
Well, yeah, I mean, and I think if a better show would have the original screenshot so we could look at the design specifically, because there are differences here, and I'm wondering which one of them was an extrapolation of, because we rarely see in films the full body anyway. So did we really see the boots that well, or were they sort of extrapolating on what they imagined it would be, or what they could get?
Well, I'm looking too, and I would say that I agree that with some of our viewers, the Saru and the Picard, the crotch area does draw your attention, whereas it's less egregious on Spock and Kirk because they've got the tunic, the kind of like flexy tunic, which seems like it could have been an option here, but they chose not to go that way.
Yeah. I never imagined thinking about Khan's thigh gap, but here we are.
Eat a cupcake, man.
So, and the larger, wider Khan is much more physically imposing, which Khan certainly was. He looks snatched. So
he looks elven. He looks like he does CrossFit.
Elven. He's an elven CrossFit instructor after Wrath of Khan. I think that's what's happening.
Yeah, riding a whale.
Riding a whale.
I want to see that. I want to see that anime. Is what I want to see. That cartoon of elven CrossFit Khan riding a whale. Anybody out there interested in a doodle project?
Elven CrossFit. Okay, great. Well, if that didn't just upset your Saturday, I don't know what will.
If you dig this figure, you can find an Amazon link below. Just if you are interested or international, you can get it here.
Yes, for sure. And it helps us. So by all means, the entire line, the 2022 line, are linked below. And if you use our link, it does help support the show. So Amazon is the evil empire, and I completely agree. But here we are. We have been subjugated by the evil empire and just like rolling with it. So anyway, who are not the evil empire, our patrons. You can join them at patreon.com/K&M. We will see you back here next week with yet another 2022 Playmates review. Thank you so much for watching Con with us. Mike, take us away with one more Con.
I hit all the wrong buttons. Every button was wrong.